I had the pleasure of sitting down with Father Boddicker, a Jesuit priest, for an interview discussing the very mysterious and providential discernment process that took him down a road of twists and turns that led him to this vocation that he didn't really want to begin with. If you are currently discerning your vocation and find it to be confusing and troublesome, feeling left with little to no answers as to what God's vocation is for you, or if you simply love to listen to a great story of romance and sacrifice, heartbreaks, and how true love of another can lead to your definitive vocation that you didn't initially want, then this interview is for you. We also talk about why many people have a misunderstanding of the Jesuit order or particular Jesuits, and why we should destigmatize these misunderstandings. I ask you to please say a prayer for those discerning their vocation, and to also like and subscribe to support this channel. Thank you and enjoy. Father, how are you?
All right, I'm doing okay.
Oh, thanks a lot for doing this.
Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you perfectly. How about me?
I can hear you really well.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you so much. This is great.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
I just say it's a pleasant way to end a long day on the road.
Oh, so where were you traveling from? Iowa, you said?
Yeah, from eastern Iowa to Cincinnati, Ohio. Just spent the last 3 weeks visiting family and friends, and then Thursday, I fly to Sri Lanka for a 6-month assignment.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. How do you feel about that?
I don't know yet. All I can think of is all the things I have to do to like pack and go to the bank and tell them like, hey, I'm going overseas. Don't shut my account down when I buy a cheeseburger in the Paris airport, you know?
Yeah.
Things like that.
So are you from Iowa originally?
Mm-hmm.
Eastern Iowa. Did you grow up on a farm, if I recall? I can't remember.
Yep. We didn't do any farming per se, but grew up with all the benefits and challenges of country life, but I loved it.
That's awesome. So you're from Eastern Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe take us through your discernment into the Jesuit order. I don't know if like what you were doing in high school, if you dated in high school or in college, or how did that pan out?
Yeah, because I didn't go to a Jesuit or even a Catholic school growing up. I'd never even heard of the Jesuits before. And I'd say as a nominal Catholic, I mean, went to mass every Sunday, went to Sunday school, but I mean, I didn't even know the Eucharist was Jesus until I was a first-year novice. So I was pretty ignorant of my Catholic faith for the most part. But I would say the first major movement in the direction of Jesuits and priesthood would be in middle school. I had a cousin who was a convert, and he was visiting and was watching me fold laundry on the dining room table. He'd just gotten back from turkey hunting with my dad, so he was just standing in the doorway of the kitchen sipping on a beer and watching me fold laundry, and he said, "Jacob, I think you have the right attitude to be a priest." And I just kind of shrugged it off and ignored it, because ever since I was in the 6th grade, I just wanted to be a stay-at-home dad with 15 kids. Like I don't know why that was my desire. Like that's just what arose in my heart.
So your wife would have worked and you would have stayed home with the kids, right?
I mean, I didn't know then how that would have all worked out, but that's what I wanted. I wanted to just like be a husband and a father with a ton of kids. I had no concept of like, how are we going to pay for that? You know, it's like, that's just what I wanted. And so when I got into high school, I was really into Star Wars and classical music and like King Arthur and things like that. a lot of people in my school found me to be kind of weird. So I was kind of on the fringe of high school society. But there was a moment my freshman year that I think really was the moment God kind of put his foot in the door of my heart. And that's where, so even though my cousin, when I was in middle school, recognized the potential for a vocation in me, I wouldn't say it gained any momentum until this moment. And it was when I was friends with a young lady named Jessica. She was 2 years older than me. So I was a freshman, she was a junior. She was also my best friend's girlfriend. So I had no romantic interest in her whatsoever. But we were both nerds and we're both in band. So she and I were good friends. And one night I was washing the dishes and the phone rings. So I answer it. This is back when phones were a thing that hung on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
I'm a millennial.
They had cords and buttons and things.
Oh, yeah.
So I answer the phone, and it's her. And she's wondering if I want to come over and just hang out, watch a movie or something. So I asked my dad, and he asked if her parents were home. And I asked her, and she said they were out bowling, but they'd be back in like an hour or so. So I told him that, and he said that I couldn't go. So I told her, maybe another time. I hung up, and I was really upset and confused because I was the good kid. Like I did everything I was asked. I didn't have a curfew because my parents trusted that I'd be home at a decent time if I was ever out. And if I wasn't, then I'd call and let them know. Like I was responsible, trusted. And I was surprised to be told no over something I thought was pretty innocent.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked my dad why he said no. And he said, well, I was your age once, and you just don't need to be put in that kind of situation. And I was so upset that I finished washing the dishes and I went outside just to blow off that steam because I felt very misjudged and misunderstood, categorized like I was just your average high school boy. But the truth was I didn't have very many guy friends because my values were so different. They were very countercultural. I believed in being truthful, being courteous. I believed in waiting for marriage. All sorts of kind of old-fashioned values that were heavily inspired by my interest in like King Arthur and chivalry and all that stuff. And then also too, like being really immersed in the mythology of Star Wars and this idea that there is good and there is evil. And you got to pick a side. And so most of my friends were girls. They tended to be a little more mature than the guys in my grade, but also they found me to be very trustworthy. And so they'd come to me and talk to me about what was on their mind, what they're going through. And so I thought long and hard about this experience that night and realized that my dad only knows me in the context of our home. He wasn't there at school when I'm having to make decisions and my character, my integrity is being challenged. He only knows me at home where it's not being challenged, that I can just be myself. And so I realized I need to think of a way to live my life such that I'm the same person at home, at school, and people know the kind of person I am by how I live. And it's, again, being very kind of poorly catechized, my faith not having kind of seeped into my soul, really. The main kind of influence in that moment was this, kind of Arthurian chivalric thing. So there was a movie I really liked at the time called Dragonheart. It has Dennis Quaid. Sean Connery does the voice of the main dragon. And there's a moment where Dennis Quaid starts off as this very honorable knight, and he kind of has this experience of betrayal and disappointment, and he leaves that way of life and becomes kind of a low life and a mercenary. But later on in the film, he returns to his way of life as a knight, and he renews his oaths of chivalry. And as a kid, I found that scene very moving, and it awakened in me this desire to like be a part of something beyond myself. I wanted to live a life of service, of deeper integrity, of honor, and so I decided that night to take like my own oaths of chivalry. And at first the idea struck me as stupid because there weren't really any kings left, not any worthy of serving. But I had this rough notion that, well, God is sort of like a king, he's in charge of everything. So I'll just trust that God's listening, and these vows that I'm making mean something to him. And so I just kind of went with it. And so all through high school, I just tried to live according to this code. Of being service to people, of being respectful, always telling the truth, etc. And I was surprised at how it really shaped me, and also how it really touched the lives of a lot of people in my school. Just to give an example, my senior year, I took a trip to Scotland with my mother. I was gone for 2 weeks. I told all my teachers, of course, because I had to like work ahead to do my schoolwork and things. But I didn't tell very many other people because I didn't have that many friends. And frankly, I didn't think anybody would care if I was gone for 2 weeks. Because I didn't see myself as terribly significant on the social scale. So, but while I was overseas, I started getting all these emails from people that I didn't even personally know, wondering where I was and if I was okay. And they would say things like, hey, Jake, I got your email from your teacher or whatever. Because every morning when I walk by your locker, you say good morning. But I've noticed the past few days, no one's told me good morning.
Wow.
And I noticed you were gone. Or they'd say, hey, I'm so-and-so. You don't know me. We're in different classes or even different grades. But every day when I'm on my way to lunch, you're holding the door open to the cafeteria near the library. And I noticed the past few days, nobody was there to hold the door open. And so like several people reached out to me because they noticed these little acts of kindness and service that I did on a daily basis that I never even thought twice about. But it had become such a routine part of their day that when it wasn't happening, they noticed it was missing. And then they noticed the person who had been doing it, and that was me.
Yeah. Like, can I ask you something? Sorry
Sure.
to interrupt. Sorry to
Oh,
interrupt,
no.
Father. It's not the most fortunate thing to be uncatechized growing up as a Catholic. We always want to be well catechized for various reasons, obviously. But do you think that your parents, living as husband and wife, mother and father together, by their lives and how they role modeled chivalry and selfless, giving and love and all that stuff, that had an impact on you, that you could almost say that they catechized you on love and how to treat people?
I would say to a degree that was true. Like my dad, at least early on in my life, he first started off in a little rock band. So when he and my mom got married, he was a musician, but then he went to school, got just a 2 years associate's degree in electrical engineering. So he worked really hard to provide for us on that. So I always saw a model of somebody who was self-sacrificing, worked hard to provide for us. He eventually got into politics and was a state representative for, 12 years, I think. And so
wow.
I also, saw a model of somebody who was of service to people, even people he didn't know, and wanted, to work hard to make the world a more just and good place to live. My mom was a nurse. When I was little, she worked in a nursing home. So I was used to her taking us there, and I saw, how kind she was toward the very ill,
Mm-hmm.
um, the abandoned, it's just saw like the tenderness that she had for um, those who are far less fortunate. We would every Sunday we went to what we called the county home. A lot of counties don't have these anymore, but it was sort of like a nursing home, but it was for those who were mostly like had mental illness, Down syndrome, things like that. Um, it was kind of the county poorhouse is what they used to call them. So people who had needs that their families couldn't take care of, so they were sent to this institution, usually out in the country. Um, but we would take 3 of them to mass every Sunday.
Oh, wow.
And so, just this constant exposure of kind of caring for the less fortunate and things like that, and kindness toward people like that. My parents, I would say, were just as poorly catechized as I was. My dad, he grew up in the 60s and 70s. So
Yeah.
there's all that turmoil in the church trying to figure itself out then. My mom grew up Baptist and converted when she married my dad,
Okay.
and says that her catechesis during that time was like nothing. So, but my dad was very firm on making sure we went to mass every Sunday, that we got our sacraments. So when I went to college eventually, I was tempted at first to stop going to mass because I found mass very boring.
Yeah. Okay.
But because he had ingrained in me the importance of Sunday mass, and even though I didn't know my faith, the 10 commandments were very important to me. And so when I remember sitting on my bed, University of Wyoming, I was an anthropology major. First Saturday night, I was at college. I'm getting ready to set my alarm and wondering, do I even want to go to church tomorrow? But that because of that habit that my father had ingrained and just the importance he had put behind it, it felt weird to think about not going to church. It just felt weird. But I also realized my dad would eventually ask if I'd found a place to go to mass.
Oh, well,
He'd,
wow.
he'd check in, he'd ask about that, I'm sure. And I realized if I stopped going to mass, I would either have to lie and therefore break that commandment, break the commandment regarding the Sabbath, and I'd be dishonoring my father. Or I'd have to tell him the truth and I'd stop going, which still breaks 2 commandments.
Right.
Or I could break no commandments and keep going
There you go. That's a win-win.
until I found a good reason not to. And it turns out there's no good reason not to go to mass. There may be
Amen.
circumstances which prevent one from being able to go, but there are no good reasons not to go.
Right. So you go to the University of Wyoming. You're an anthropology major. You continue on the path of going to mass on Sundays.
Yes.
And then was there something that happened in college that kind of sparked this curiosity or interest in the clerical order, or at least to the priesthood? I know you said your cousin in middle school asked you that question, but did something in college happen, or?
Yes. So I started at the University of Wyoming, and during those 2 years, I'd say a couple of significant things happened that continued to turn me toward my vocation ultimately. One is that decision to continue going to mass eventually helped me overcome real deep homesickness that set in very early on. Because I'm one of those rare people who grew up in the same house pretty much my whole life. We moved to the house I grew up in when I was 3. I have like one memory of the house previous to that. And so I'd basically lived in the same place my whole life, and just was very comfortable. And I enjoyed where I lived, where I grew up. What few friends I did have, I missed them. I missed just the land I lived in. So I got very homesick. But one day at mass, I realized my family's at the same mass I am, just in Iowa instead of Wyoming. We're saying the same prayers, hearing the same readings. And so that universality of the Mass made me realize Mass is my connection to home wherever I go.
Oh, beautifully said.
And so I've never been homesick since.
Oh, I love it.
And so that was an important grace. Second, my second semester, I remember, so I made my first friends at the Newman Center there in Laramie. And those friends later on asked me, hey, do you want to go on a retreat? And I said, from what? Because I'd never heard of a retreat before, except in that like military sense. And so they explained what a retreat was. I said, that sounds really boring. Just a lot of quiet time and prayer.
Right.
I'll pass. But then they said, oh, this person's going, this person's going. I was like, okay, I'll go. And it was phenomenal. And one thing, the main thing that came out of that was I remember a penance service where our pastor came, and we were in this big open room. He stood at one end, and there was a long line of college kids waiting to go to confession with him. And I noticed all these college kids, all grade levels, men and women, just bawling their eyes out and nervous and anxious. And then they meet with him. And then as they're walking away, they're joyful, they're smiling. They might still be weeping, but it's a different kind.
Yeah.
And I noticed one person at a time, this transformation that happened that marked the difference between before meeting with the priest and after. And I realized there is power in the sacrament of confession. And that's just one of 7 sacraments if my basic Sunday school was serving me. And I realized that there's probably power in the other sacraments too. And it just hit me like there's something about being Catholic that is different than any other version of Christianity. And so that experience helped me really embrace my Catholic identity, even if I was almost completely ignorant of anything that the church taught. I knew like I'm Catholic and that's what I'm always going to be.
Beautiful.
That summer after my first year, I met a girl who was a friend of my sister. And by the end of the summer, I was dating for the first time. And so,
okay.
second year in Wyoming, I was dating long distance with this girl who was back in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And during that second year in Wyoming, I started feeling like maybe anthropology wasn't what I wanted to give my life to. Because even though I would say my relationship with this girl was not good, was not healthy, and just the nature of the relationship and her own character and personality just really didn't pull a lot of the best out of me. What it did awaken in me was this sense for the first time that my life was a gift that was meant to be given.
And you realized that by dating her, or?
Yeah, because in my own kind of naive, I guess, dreams of like being a father and a husband, like for the first time I had a girlfriend, and for the first time it seemed like that dream could happen. Even though there were a lot of aspects of the relationship that were not good, not healthy, not holy, I was kind of blind to a lot of that because I was just so naive and optimistic. And again, in love for the first time and all this, but it made me realize like my life is a gift. And I didn't feel like anthropology, archaeology was what I wanted to give my life to. And so I thought like, well, what am I going to do? And I remember a lot of my teachers in high school that I respected suggested I go into teaching. So I contacted some of my favorite teachers, asked where I should go to school, and ended up transferring to Northern Iowa. And got plugged into the Catholic Student Center right away. Was going to Mass twice a week.
Nice.
My girlfriend dumped me a few months after I transferred. We'd been together a year and a half. And the reason she dumped me is because I wanted to wait for marriage.
Oh, okay.
She did not. even though I'd compromised chastity in so many other ways to please her, to make her happy, there was, just that final line I wasn't willing to cross. And that's what ultimately ended things. And I was devastated. But ultimately grateful that I had at least held out in that way. But it was during that time of devastation, I got to know another young lady who was very virtuous, wonderful friend. But what attracted me to her, even before just her beauty did, was her faith. She wasn't Catholic, she was Methodist, but she knew Jesus. I didn't know that you could know Jesus. I knew that you could know about him. I didn't know you could know him. And she was the first person I'd ever met that I could tell knew Jesus. And I was like, I want to get to know her because she'll teach me how to get to know him.
Were you tempted to become Methodist?
I wasn't, because at the time, I knew I was Catholic and that's who I was always going to be. I also was so ignorant in my faith, I didn't really know that there were that many actual important differences between denominations. I thought Christianity was kind of like dog breeds, like they're all dogs. It's just like, what's your preference? What kind of dog,
what breed would Catholicism be, and what breed would Methodism be?
We'd be a wolf, man, like the prime dog.
Yeah, that's funny.
Methodist, I don't know, but that's how I kind of saw it. It's like different flavors of ice cream. Y'all have your preference. But if you want like the best vanilla with all the toppings, that's Catholicism.
Yeah, fullness of the truth.
Yeah. So, but it didn't matter to me that she wasn't Catholic. What mattered is she loved Jesus and knew him, and I wanted what she had. And so I started going to a Bible study that she taught. And I started praying about what God wanted me to do with my life because I didn't know. I admitted I have no idea. I dropped the education major because I realized I don't have a calling to that. Everybody else in my class did. I did not. So I was just studying history. No idea what I was going to do with a degree in history, but I had to study something. And so I just started praying. It's like, God, what do you want me to do with my life? And after about a month, I really started realizing this young lady, her name was Laura. That's the woman I've been waiting my whole life for. Checked all the boxes. She'd be a good wife. She'd be good for my soul. She'd lead me closer to God and keep me there. And she wanted to have a lot of kids too. So I was like, all right, let's see what God wants for the two of us. But also too, there was one day I had this powerful experience of prayer that really shook me because I didn't know how to pray. I was taught the Our Father, the Hail Mary. I could remember the Glory Be on a good day. That wasn't a prayer that I was really taught, but I kind of picked it up somewhere along the line. And so when I was starting to pray about what I should do with my life, I realized I have no idea how to talk to God. Definitely don't know how to listen. But I joined the Knights of Columbus when I was in Wyoming as a way of fulfilling that desire to be a knight. And if you're familiar with the Knights of Columbus, at least before they underwent all their changes, I imagine it's still the same. When you first join, you promise to always carry the rosary with you and to pray it as often as possible. No one had taught me how to pray the rosary, but I kept the promise to always have it with me. And so I was like, well, the rosary, they say, is a powerful way to pray. So I'll pray the rosary and ask God to help me. So I prayed the rosary as best I knew how. I knew which beads were Our Fathers and Hail Marys. I didn't know the mysteries. I didn't know the creed, the Fatima, none of that. So on every Our Father bead, I would say, God, please give me comfort and guidance. Pray the Our Father, pray 10 Hail Marys. Do that 5 times and do that as many times a day as I had time for.
I think that's beautiful what you did.
Well, it's the prayer of a child, you know?
Yeah.
And a father was listening. And
Yeah.
so, after a month of praying like that when I woke up, before I went to bed, if I was at class early, got done with the test early, was walking to class, whenever I had a spare moment, I was just throwing those beads out desperately. And one day I was praying, and about halfway through the rosary, just had this experience of feeling very small and very vulnerable. Um, and it's just like the whole world just like vanished for a time. And I didn't understand what was going on, but after it passed, it left me terrified. And I talked to Laura about it because she came in the room shortly after whatever it was passed, and I talked to her about it. And the only thing I could come up with is if maybe like that was God like reaching out to touch me or something,
Mm.
because it felt very powerful. And so I just asked her, like, have you ever been touched by God? And she said no, but my sister has. And I'm like, oh, okay, so it's a thing that happens. What did she say it was like? Oh, it was so warm and comforting. And I was like, okay, that's not what I experienced. So I talked about it and we prayed. I talked to my priest about it. He suggested I keep praying, but to tell God, like, deliberately, that I am listening, like, you have my attention.
Mm.
So I continued to pray the same way. A month later, I've been invited to be a sponsor for somebody going through RCIA. And at one of the meetings, a history professor from the college had been invited to give a 1 hour lecture on the history of the Catholic Church. That's a big ask.
Yeah, it is.
And so if you imagine, gosh, if I only had 1 hour to tell the story of the Catholic Church, what would I include and what would I skip? There's a lot of things you just have to skip out of necessity. But one thing that he mentioned for, 20 or 30 seconds was these Jesuit guys. And I don't even quite remember what he said, but when he spoke about the Jesuits, I felt just like a quick jolt of that previous spiritual experience.
Mm.
And I just felt like God was saying, pay attention to that. And so I immediately leaned over there were a couple of presentation sisters that worked at the student center. And so there was Sister Julie, she was sitting at my table, and I asked her, do we have any information on these Jesuit guys? And she pointed to this wall that had all these brochures about vocations. So during the break, I grabbed the Jesuit one. And that night, went to the website for my province, poked around and tried to learn a little bit about them. And I sent an email to the vocations director. And I still remember it word for word. And at this time, I went by the name Jake instead of Jacob, much to my mother and grandmother's dismay. And I said, dear Father Sazama, my name is Jake Boddicker. I'm a student at University of Northern Iowa. I'd like to learn more about the Jesuits. Here's my address. Please send me anything free. Sincerely, Jake Boddicker. Send, And the next day, or in the morning, I get a phone call, and it's Father Sazama, and we chit chat for a little bit. And he says he'll send me some books to read, and once I've read them, and if I'm still interested, to get back in touch with him. And I'd prayed about it that night too. And at the same point in my rosary, about halfway through the third decade, I again had this really powerful experience, very similar to the first one, but instead it was very warm. It felt very familiar, and what Ignatius would call consoling.
Mm.
And so I just really felt like God was inviting me to follow this Jesuit path and to trust that he was going to steer me forward or away from it, but to follow it faithfully and to trust in his direction. It's like, all right, great, I'll do that. I also, around the same time, had resolved to just be satisfied with being friends with Laura. Because it got to that point that often happens when a young man and a young woman are friends, and the man starts feeling feelings that are more than friendship in his heart, but he doesn't quite know where she's at.
Mm-hmm.
And so this anxiety builds up whenever he's around her. And he doesn't even know what to do with himself. It's just like this terror, but of course he still wants to be around her. So I was at that point where anytime I was around her, there's just this ball of anxiety on the inside and just trying to keep together on the outside. Because I don't want to not be friends with her, and by like asking, exposing my feelings too much. And so I'd prayed about that and just felt like God asking me to just hand that whole thing over and to just be for her who she needed me to be, instead of trying to be who I wanted to be for her.
Yeah. I don't want to jump too far, but I had a similar experience in my discernment. Now, would you say that once you receive this, consolation and you're kind of on that path, and then when you are around her, is there, you get that ball of anxiety, is there a temptation to kind of, get away from the discernment, or at least that path to the Jesuits and learning and researching them, to maybe like just throw that to the side and then go to her? Or?
That temptation didn't come until months later, because at the time when I felt like God was inviting me to really look into this Jesuit thing and go kind of full on into that, is when I kind of surrendered the idea of being romantically involved with Laura, and it just contented myself with being her friend. Because again, I had no idea how she felt about me. I had been transparent about my feelings many times.
Okay.
But could never get her to like share how she felt. And so rather than keep pushing and ruin a friendship, rather than continue with this anxiety, I was like, you know what? I should just be grateful that I'm friends with such a wonderful person. Go do follow this Jesuit thing, and just trust that that's where God wants me to go. Well, of course, talk to any seminarian, any priest. There's at least one broken heart on the trail, right?
Mm-hmm.
So about a month later, Laura has been very busy. She's an RA, double major, just an amazing human being, very busy. We bump into each other at dinner, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like we haven't done anything forever. What do you got going on tonight? She's like, hey, I'm free till 10. We should get together and do something. Like, great. So we go to my room to watch a movie, and I've got a lot of DVDs. She picks one out. And
is it Dragonheart?
No, I wish. She, for whatever reason, we ended up watching City of Angels with Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan.
Yeah.
He plays an angel who falls in love with a human, and in the most theologically problematic and unlikely way possible, he himself becomes human in order to be with her. And then tragedy, she dies like the day after they're together. And I had forgotten how sad the movie ends up being. So she is weeping by the end of the movie. And I'm, of course, panicking, like, oh no, I've ruined everything. She's sad. So I tried to cheer her up by telling her about this book I've been reading about the Jesuits and St. Ignatius and some of the Jesuit saints. And she starts to calm down a bit. And then at the end, I remember saying something like, I think God might want me to be a Jesuit priest. I don't know. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. She starts crying again.
No. Oh, double whammy.
And of course, I'm totally oblivious because, I don't given up the idea of being with her. So I thought it was just the movie that was still bothering her. So eventually she does calm down and she has to get going on rounds. And I go to bed thinking, look, this is great. It's great to hang out and to finally kind of share with her like this whole Jesuit thing I've been thinking about. And went to bed thinking nothing of it. Well, the next morning, getting ready for Mass, I was replaying the night, and it just bothered me. Like, okay, she's crying. I'm cheering her up. Mention maybe being a Jesuit priest, she cries again. And finally it clicked that maybe she likes me, and telling her that I might be a priest like upset her.
Mm.
And so in the little time I have before mass, I run down and knock on her door and try to talk to her about it. She didn't want to talk about it. Like, oh, just let it go. It's stupid. And so I basically promised, like, nope, I'm going to discern both. Let's see what God wants. If he wants us to be together, then I want that too. If he wants me to be a priest, then that's what I'll do. But like, let's pray together what God's will is for us. I also started writing her lots of poetry and just really trying to show like how much I cared about her, how much I loved her, in the hopes that I would get a better sense of how she felt. Because if she had no feelings for me, then yeah, I'm gonna go do this Jesuit thing and I'll just make a choice. But if she did have feelings for me, I wanted to be mindful of that because I still really wanted to be a husband and a father.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's kind of this like X factor in the equation still. Like, how does she feel about me? Could never get her to tell me. Time goes on. Summer comes. I'd written her a letter explaining all my feelings for her, where I'm at with the whole priesthood thing. I'd given her a month to read it. She never got back to me. That summer, I spent 6 months, or 6 weeks rather, in Milwaukee with the Jesuits, just living with them, serving with them, just kind of trying it out.
Yeah.
Kind of a immersion experience of sorts. And I come out of that feeling like, if this is what God wants me to do, I think I could be happy and fulfilled. But I had no clarity vocation wise yet. Never did hear from Laura that whole summer. Come back to school for my second year at Northern Iowa. Bump into Laura on campus. We decided to get together and catch up. And it was September 1st of 2005. And we're just in my dorm room talking about our summers. And eventually I asked her if she'd read that letter, because she'd had it 5 months to the day. And she said she hadn't.
Oh, wow. You think she was afraid to?
Well, she admitted she'd started reading it, but was too afraid to read it, which is a shame because I thought it was a really good letter. I drafted it like 13 times and had lots of girls read it to make sure nothing scary. Or it was like the perfect letter. And I quoted scripture and Cyrano de Bergerac. And
oh my God. Like,
yeah.
It needs to be read. This can't go wasted.
Well, it's like it's so, but I also made sure to say, like, you don't have to respond. Just let me know that you've read it so that I know that you know what's on my heart. So I basically just kind of paraphrased what was in the letter and talked about my experience in Milwaukee and tried to be very careful to use very conditional language because I hadn't made a choice yet. And I didn't want her to think, oh, he's going to go be a priest. Because I had no clarity on the matter yet. But after I got done sharing, she broke down and finally spilled her guts. Basically, she had felt the same about me this whole time. Wanted nothing more than to be together. And she is begging God every day to make that that's what she wanted and was hoping that's what God wanted. But she kept everything to herself because whenever she prayed or whenever I would share what was going on in my life, she could see God was doing something very important in my heart and in my life, and she didn't want to interfere with that. And I realized no one has ever loved me like that before.
Yes.
Where she put all of her desires and interests aside for my sake and suffered tremendously.
Yes.
Because she knew this whole time, all it would take is for her to say, I love you or I want to be with you. And that's the choice I would have made. There would have been no question.
Man, that's powerful, man.
And here I am laying on, like, I think between watching that movie early February and the end of the semester, so February, March, April, early May, 3 months or less, I wrote her maybe 80 poems of different styles and lengths, different times of day. Sometimes in the middle of the night, I'd wake up and write one and slip it under her door and whatever. And she kept every single one of them,
Wow.
turns out. So like I was laying it on thick, and I was helping her with her volunteer work. If she needed help with something because she'd had a long, like I was there, man. She kept it all to herself and prayed about it and hoped and hoped and hoped. And so when I talked about my experience in Milwaukee and where I was in discernment and stuff, she just let it all out. And I was like, wow, I was just amazed. So eventually she had to get going. I just spent the rest of the day thinking and reflecting and just grateful that I finally know. Solved for X. Now I can make a choice. If I do the Jesuit thing, I'm giving up being in a relationship with her. If I'm in a relationship with her, I got to put this Jesuit thing aside. Well, by that evening, I felt like something was off. Something didn't feel right. And I talked to a friend of mine from high school who had been her roommate a couple years prior, shared what we talked about, and she told me she knew Laura. And based on what I had said, Laura probably thought I was going to go be a priest. Like that's what was clear in her mind. And my friend told me, once Laura makes up her mind on something, you will not be able to change it. So you need to make a choice now, and you need to tell her soon, or it's going to be too late. And I was just like, oh my gosh.
No pressure.
No pressure. Well, that weekend was Labor Day weekend. I knew she was going home to her family. I knew roughly how to get to her house driving wise, but I didn't have a car. So in the spirit of Ignatius and hopeless romanticism, in an effort to see and speak to her sooner rather than later, in an effort to give myself time to pray and to really trust in God, I decided I would walk to her family's house, knock on the door, and tell Laura that I loved her and I wanted to be with her. That was going to be my choice. But I was going to use that time in walking those 40 miles to pray. Because I'd realized my prayer for a long time up to that point had been, God, I trust you. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And then God would respond, I want you to trust me. And then I'd respond, I trust you, God. Tell me what to do and I'll do it. And just that, back and forth. What this experience with Laura taught me was I didn't trust God at all. I wanted him to tell me what to do so that I had the comfort of knowing I was doing the right thing instead of making a choice and trusting that God would bless it. Because I thought discernment was about solving the riddle in God's head about what I should do with my life. What'll make God happy? What did he plan for me to do? And he's not just going to tell me, because that'd be too easy. So I have to figure it out. That's not what discernment is at all. Discernment of vocation is this. St. Clare of Assisi, Thomas Aquinas, lots of others teach in so many words, we become what we love. Well, what does God love? What does God want? What is his deepest desire? It's us. Why? He became one of us. Okay, so when we want to know what does God want, ultimately he just wants me. Doesn't matter how I give myself to him. No, as long as he gets me. And so when it comes to vocation, does he know what vocation will be most fulfilling and suitable to us? Absolutely. So discernment, Ignatius teaches, is about choosing between goods, not right and wrong, not good and bad. Because between right and wrong, you always choose right. Between good and bad, you always choose good. But what if you have to make a decision between lots of good things? That's what discernment is about. And so discerning a vocation is about letting God show us the truth of ourselves and how he made us and how he made our hearts, so that we'll have the clearest sense of what vocation will allow me to give myself to God most fully and joyfully and freely.
Right.
Does that mean that's what I must do? No, it doesn't. Could I have chosen ultimately to marry Laura? Yeah. Would God have blessed it? Yeah. But I probably at some point or many points in my life as a husband and father would have wondered, it's like, is there more? Was I made for more? Am I capable of more? And so I imagine I would have wrestled with, like, should I become a deacon? Like there would have been questions, not regrets per se, but questions. But ultimately, God helped me realize, like, priesthood is what I'm most suited for. But when I was walking to Laura's house, I was like, this is it. And I'll do the Jesuit thing later if this doesn't work out.
Can I just ask you, did you say 40 miles of
Yeah.
a walk?
Yeah, I did.
40?
Yeah. and I made the decision like the day before.
Okay.
I remember
Wow.
my best friend, her name was Kendra. It is now Sister Maria Canisius. She's a Dominican sister now. She had a car, and I asked her if she could take me to Walmart to do some shopping. And she's like, well, I already took you earlier this week. Did you already eat all your food? I was like, well, no, I have something going on this weekend. And so she's pushing the cart, and I'm putting in like a bundle of rope, bottled water, beef jerky, an outdoor blanket, like all this crazy stuff. And she's like, are you going camping? I'm like, I hope not.
Yeah.
But just in case, she's like, what is going on? And I told her, she's like, you're insane. It's like, I have to do this. And I made it about halfway and ran out of water, got really terrible blisters on my feet. But out of the blue, someone pulled over and offered me a ride. And I took it initially to the nearest town just to refill my water bottles. But they got worried, like, this is dangerous. It's hot out. Like, you could die. So we kind of argued.
Is it not dangerous to get in that car, though?
Well, I mean, again, hopeless romantic here. Very trusting.
Okay.
The guy in the passenger seat was a big, like, strong, scary-looking guy. But the driver was this skinny dude with a beanie, like the hat with the propeller on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, anybody that wears a hat like that is not dangerous. Weird, but not dangerous. And it turned out they were students from Northern Iowa on their way to a Slipknot concert in Cedar Rapids.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, oh. So once they found out I was a student, they're like, what's wrong with you? You homeless? I told them, and they thought this is the coolest thing anybody's ever done. But they got nervous before dropping me off that if something bad happened to me, they'd feel responsible. So we argued, and I compromised by letting them drop me off on the exit on the interstate that exits off to a country highway that leads to her house. So I just walked the last few miles myself. So ultimately walked more like 25 miles of the 40.
Still, though.
But still, it was grueling. And by the time I got to her house, I just like rang the doorbell and collapsed at her feet. But I was, long story short, she had already kind of made up her mind that she just needed to let me go.
Oh.
And focus on school and to let God have his way with me, which was pretty devastating. I felt very foolish. And I told her, like, well, if you'll just let me kind of catch my breath, I'll leave. But she insisted that I stay for the weekend because I was in no shape to walk back. I honestly wasn't going to walk all the way back. I was going to walk till I couldn't see her house anymore. And I was just going to lay down in the ditch and call my friend and say, I'm in a ditch on such and such road. Come and find me. Honk your horn and I'll call you when I hear it.
Oh, wow. Wait, not to interrupt you, Father, but did you have a decision that you came to on the way to her house before she broke the news to you?
Well, so yeah, my decision was I'm gonna ask her to be in a relationship with me. I'm gonna ask her to be my girlfriend and to discern, if you basically discern marriage together. That's the choice I'd made.
Okay.
Because I was so scared of losing her because I knew, like, this is the one. This is the one. And it's like, if this doesn't work out, then I'll do the Jesuit thing later. The Jesuit thing can wait.
Sure.
So that you asked about, like, was I ever tempted to ditch the discernment thing? That was the moment, because I had that fear that I could lose her.
Mm-hmm.
When if I was listening to God and trusting Him, just because she was giving up being in a relationship with me didn't mean I was going to lose her as the deep friend that I had this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
It just meant that she was giving up being in a deeper relationship, a romantic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But I let my fear get the best of me, and I just chucked the Jesuit thing to the side. It's like, I'm going to go get her, and just prove to her that I wanted to be with her and that I loved her. And I thought, like, how could this go wrong? Oh, it went always wrong. I got to her house, and I was going to leave. She's like, you're going to stay here for the weekend? You're in no shape to walk back. You'll just have to stay here, and I'll take you back after the weekend's over. I'm thinking I have 3 days to win her back.
Watch, dude. Hey, sorry, I didn't mean to call you dude. You're the second Jesuit priest that I've called dude. The other one's Father John Brown. He's come on my channel before.
Oh, totally.
I apologize, man. I don't mean to.
No, totally. I'm not offended in the least.
No, I was gonna say, like, did you guys watch City of Angels to rekindle?
I tried to help out with some of the farm work as best I could with my destroyed feet, but the first thing was, she said, you can just rest. My sister and I have to go take care of the horses, and then we need to go to the such and such nearby town because it's her mom's birthday. So I crashed that party.
Oh my.
And I'd never met her mom before, but her mom had heard all sorts of stuff about me and was excited and surprised to meet me. And so I was just this unexpected guest of her family for the weekend, which I didn't think about or anticipate.
Free food, right?
Free food. They broke out the fine china.
Oh,
it was a matching set of John Deere plates and cups and.
Oh gosh! Now
Literally,
that's redneck, right? I mean, we can.
I would say it's country
or country, okay.
Yeah, but they literally, we feasted on the fattened calf. Like they thawed out beef from a calf that they'd slaughtered.
Prodigal
Really,
son.
like they really treated me so well. They're wonderful people, and so I had hopes, and there were some tender moments early on. But then she'd invited another friend, a young man that she'd known for a long time, been childhood friends with, to come and visit. And I felt very just kind of like left behind from that moment on. So the first day and so was wonderful, but then it was obvious to me that the door was shut and it was not going to open.
Sure.
And I needed to stop forcing it if I really cared for her at all. So
sure.
The ride back to school that Monday was hard. She expressed the desire to remain friends because being her friend and supporting her the past couple of years have been really important. A lot of her friends have kind of ditched her for the college life.
Yeah.
Where she stayed very close to her faith. And I was kind of the only friend that stuck with her. But once I got back to school, I would invite her like, hey, my friends and I are going to see a movie. No response. And so I just kind of had to let her go. And I had an application with me, but I knew if I filled it out, I'd be filling it out because I felt it was like I had nothing else left.
Yeah.
That's a bad reason to choose any way of life. So I knew I needed to heal until I felt I had the freedom to apply. And the sign that I was ready for that came a few months later when I was invited I was singing in our church choir, and the instructor was a student who was majoring in music. And he encouraged me to try out for one of the university choirs because they're having tryouts soon.
Mm-hmm.
He thought I'd enjoy singing in a bigger group and a more challenging repertoire. And so when I went to the music building to fill out the paperwork for auditions, one of the choir instructors greeted me by name. Her name was Dr. Lamartine. I had met her once, almost 2 years prior, after my friend Kendra's concert.
Hmm.
My friend introduced me. How this choir instructor still remembered my name after all that time, I don't know. But when she greeted me, I felt seen in a way that I had not felt in a long time. I was in a very lonely place. And so she asked me what I was doing in the music building. And I said, I'm going to try out for the choir. She's like, great. The forms are over here. Can't wait to see you at your audition. So I went to the audition. And afterwards, she and the other choir instructor begged me to rework my schedule so I could be in their top choirs. And they also said I needed to take voice lessons. I had no idea I had a gift for singing, but apparently I did.
Interesting. So voice lessons, even though you had a good voice, just to kind of
Yeah, just to
get it.
continue to develop that gift and
Oh,
refine
sure.
it.
Okay.
And the reason I mentioned this episode is because a few weeks later, I'm sitting outside the choir room praying my rosary fervently, as I have been. And at this time, I had very long hair and a shorter but darker beard. And a lot of people like, oh, you look like Jesus. And that would just really upset me when people would say that because I knew I am not Jesus. Well, my choir teacher comes to unlock the rehearsal room. It says, Jake, I had a dream about you last night. And I'm like, that's unusual that my teacher would have a dream about me. And I told her and my other instructor that I was trying to think about priesthood, so I might only be there for a semester. Didn't know for sure. But she said in her dream, instead of calling me Jake, she kept calling me Jesus. And
Interesting.
that didn't strike her as weird at all. Like it seemed like the most natural thing to call me Jesus instead of Jacob or Jake.
Hmm.
And she just wanted to share that with me. And I was stunned. And when I reflected on it throughout the day, I realized that my choir teacher, even though she was Catholic but wasn't really practicing,
Uh-huh.
um, I realized maybe she saw something in me that I'd lost sight of.
Mm.
And so I took that as kind of God's way of saying, you are ready enough to begin applying. So I started filling out my application, contacted the Jesuit, said I'm ready to start this process. And so I went through the whole process, fill out this big form, got some letters of recommendation, go in, got a full physical, came to Milwaukee for a week to do a series of interviews with different Jesuits and lay people, full psychiatric workup, the works. And in April of 2006, I got a phone call from the vocation director congratulating me. First thing I did was emailed Laura. It seemed like the right thing to do.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
Never heard anything back from her.
Huh.
But then started sharing it with my friends, and they were so excited and happy for me. I started giving my stuff away. And just spent that summer, yeah, giving a lot of my stuff away, even though I didn't have to. It just felt like the right thing to do. It's not like I had a lot of stuff, I was just a college student.
Yeah. Was this around like 2006 or 7 or
6,
6? Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
In fact, today is the 19th anniversary of my entrance into the novitiate.
Wow.
Yeah,
Congrats. Congrats,
thanks.
Father. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was just a really joyful summer of just kind of let go of a lot of what little stuff I had. I closed my bank account and pocketed the enormous sum of money, $38.06.
You remember the exact amount.
I mean, it's not that hard to remember such a
It's
small
not.
number.
Yeah, it's not. No, yeah.
And yeah, I entered. But again, I entered only because I knew that's where God was calling me to go and to
Okay.
trust Him. I still want to be a husband and father badly.
Oh.
I didn't want to be a priest, but I knew like this is where God's leading me and I got to trust Him. And
Okay.
I'll end my story with this. During the spiritual exercises, which is 30 days of silent prayer and contemplation. One of the things Ignatius teaches is that God gives us our deepest, most holy desires as a gift and a way of leading us deeper into relationship with Him. Because hopefully we'll realize only He can fulfill those desires. Well, it seemed to me that my deepest, most holy desire was to be a father and a husband. And yet when I asked Him what He wanted me to do, He wanted me to do something totally opposite. And that really upset me. And it got to the point where I had to put that whole thing off to the side and just focus on doing the exercises. And so I just kind of said, God, the ball's in your court. You want to bring this matter up later? You bring it up. I'm going to walk away, and I'm going to just focus on the whole Jesuit thing and leave the whole fatherhood, marriage thing behind unless you bring it up again. Finish the exercises. Amazing experience. Finish first year of novitiate. Finish second year. It's this few weeks before first vows. I've been approved. I'm excited to take the next step. Everybody else is excited for me. And so I'm getting ready to go on my annual 8-day retreat. And it hits me. I've never asked God if He wants me to take first vows. I just kind of gotten caught in the momentum of the process.
Yeah.
But I never asked God, it's like, do you want me to take this next step? Because I was only there because I knew this is where God wanted me to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so during that 8-day retreat, that was the grace that I wanted, is confirmation that God wanted me to take first vows. Well, partway through that retreat, my director has me contemplate the journey of Mary and Joseph to Bethlehem for the census. And so I'm imagining Mary 9 months pregnant on this donkey, and they're getting close to Bethlehem, and her water breaks. She's starting to go into labor, contractions, all that, and she's probably trying to cross her legs and tense her muscles and try to not have a baby on the back of a donkey. And Joseph going door to door, hey, we need a place to stay. We're having a baby, and everybody's like, ew, no, go away, no room. And so eventually having to settle for this stable. And I was thinking about what that must have been like for Mary as the perfect Jew. All she wants is for the Messiah to come and save her people. As a perfect daughter and servant of God, wants to do God's will of bringing the Savior into the world. But like the world says, we don't want him. There's no room. But also like she's trying to prevent him from being born just a little longer. But like that means also she's the one delaying the coming of the Savior. And just that like pain and torment in her own heart of like, ugh, what an awful situation, And I realized like, the church is kind of like that, like just wants to bring Jesus into the world to the point where that desire is like in agony, but the world is like not interested, no room, pass. Yep. I was like, okay, Mary and the church, there's like a parallel there. And Mary belongs to God, the church belongs to Jesus, parallel there. Where does Joseph fit in? And so I thought about Joseph. It's like, well, scripture says he's righteous. And so he's a man to whom God said, Joseph, I know you and I love you. I trust you. You want to have a wife? Like I trust you with my spouse. I want you to love her, take care of her, provide for her, protect her. Love her as if she was your own, but remember, she's not yours, she's mine. And how you love and serve Mary is how you love and serve me. And you want a family? I want to entrust you with our son. And you provide for him, love him, raise him, protect him, teach him as if he was your own. But remember, he's not yours, he's mine. And how you love and serve him is how you love and serve me. And I realized this whole time, from middle school up until that moment in retreat, God had been saying the same thing to me. Jacob, I know you and I love you and I trust you. You want to get married? You want a wife? How about the bride of Christ?
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll find no woman of more exceeding beauty and virtue than her. And that's the wife I want for you. And how you love and serve the church is how you love and serve me. You know, I want you to give your whole life to her, provide for her, protect her, uphold her honor and her dignity, and just die for her. And you want to be a father? It's like, well, everybody in the world will call you father.
Right.
And all the people of the church will be your children. And how you love and serve them is how you love and serve me. And once he made me help me realize that being a priest and being a father were not two separate things, but two ways of fulfilling the same desire, I realized I've wanted to be a priest my whole life. But I just didn't really know what priesthood was or could be. I
Right.
didn't understand why we called priest father. I thought it was a title. But in that moment, I felt like God was saying, everybody will call you a father, but I want you to actually be one. I want you to take this desire you've had to be a father and live your priesthood through that, to be a father for people. And but yeah, once he connected those dots for me, I was like, this is what I've always wanted. And that's when I knew, like, not only did God want me to be a priest, I wanted to be a priest.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. So
So
you were ordained. I'm going to try to do the math here. Were you ordained in 2016 or 17?
17.
Okay. Because it's, excuse me, uh, 10 years, right? With the Jesuits to be.
I'd say it's on average 11. So you have a 2-year novitiate, 3 years of philosophy with a little bit of theology, 3 years of what's called regency, which is apostolic work, usually in a high school, not always, and then 3 years of theology. So 2, 3, 3, 3. It could be longer if you say enter right out of high school or you don't finish college. You might have to take some more school to get your like gen eds and stuff. Or if you have some struggles along the way, you might have to do an extra year of something to work on certain things. Or if you enter and you're older or you have a degree or some hours in philosophy or theology, um, your formation might be shortened. But if you enter right out of college, you have a degree or you have your gen eds and stuff already done, usually you're looking at 11 years total.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, we're blessed to have a priest like you. I know we've been friends on Facebook for a while, and we've talked a little here and there, and you've given me some spiritual advice, and I've asked you to pray for me and everything like that. And you're one of maybe 3 Jesuit priests that I know, and I'm a convert, so I'm 11 years as a Catholic,
Oh,
and I have nothing but just stark affinity and love for the Jesuits. I just do. Pope Francis was everything to me, and but I've noticed that there's this stigma attached to Jesuit priests.
mm-hmm.
They get like scapegoated and made fun of, and they're liberal, and all this other stuff. Like, can you tell me maybe just a little bit, like, where does that come from? How we can deal with that and overcome that, and what's going on? Do you know what I'm talking about, or?
Yeah, I do, because
Oh,
almost everywhere I go, people will ask me one version in one way or another, are you a good Jesuit or a bad Jesuit? And there's a part of me that wants to say, I've been faithful to my vows, so I guess that makes me a good Jesuit. Because that would make any Jesuit who's faithful to his vows a good Jesuit. But I know what they're asking is more like the political alignment,
mhm.
you know. And people who know me know that I'm a more kind of traditional conservative guy. Um, for example, right after I was ordained, I spent the summer at Creighton University just so I had a place to say daily mass and hear confessions and just exercise those basic elements of priesthood a lot for the summer, so that when I got to my first assignment, saying mass, hearing confessions was like old hat for me, and
Mhm.
I'd be very comfortable doing it. Well, while I was there, a program called IPF, Ignatian Priestly Formation, was going on. There were seminarians there from all over the U.S. So every daily mass was full of young men studying for the priesthood and doing the spiritual exercises. just to have that, to learn about Ignatian spirituality. And so I was saying mass for them, hearing their confessions. Well, one day after a couple weeks, a pair of seminarians walks up to me, introduce themselves, and they say, Father, we're wondering, a lot of us are wondering, are you a diocesan priest or a Jesuit priest? And I was like, why do you ask? Like, well, we just know it's just the way you preach and the way you present at mass is really different from a lot of the Jesuits that we're used to. And, you're kind of new here. So we're just curious. I said, well, actually, I'm a Jesuit priest. I was just ordained, a month ago. And they look at each other. One of them says, a lot of people just lost a lot of money. Because I guess a bunch of them had been betting on whether as diocesan or Jesuit had bet diocesan. Because they mistook my style of preaching and presiding as, clearly too conservative for a Jesuit.
Okay.
But what I think people fail to recognize about the Jesuits is we are a huge order. I think there's like 13, 14,000 of us. I mean, I might be behind on that number, but there's a lot of us all over the world. And so it's a big order. And there's guys on every end of the spectrum and all through the middle. I think one of the reasons why we kind of have this stigma or this reputation of being liberal, being kind of on the liberal edge theologically, politically, is a number of Jesuits who are kind of in the media spotlight are that way. And so the Jesuits most people are exposed to are of a, I guess, more left-leaning variety. But there's a lot of Jesuits you meet at retreat houses, at parishes, Jesuits who are scholars and stuff that aren't, don't have as big a public voice, that are, conservative, traditional, middle of the road. But they're not out, like, they're not as known. They're out there doing their job. And so people don't hear about them. But the ones who have kind of, the biggest platforms I've noticed tend to be kind of more left leaning. But I think people also forget that it's a big church and you have to lean pretty far in one direction or the other to fall outside the fence,
Right.
People they mistake unity with uniformity. But as St. Paul says, there's one body with many parts, and the parts are very diverse, but they work together for the good of the body, even though they're all very different. And so, are there some Jesuits that are kind of way out there? Sure, on both sides. There's some that lean way to the right and some that lean way to the left, but the church gives us in a lot of areas like a wide area to run around in. As long as we stay inside the fences, then we're not heretics.
Yeah, good stuff.
But I think we also forget, Jesus' exhortation not to condemn anybody. And, okay, so Father so-and-so publishes an article or says something on a news broadcast. Oh, he's a heretic, or figures as a Jesuit. And it's just like, or I can't tell you, I don't know if it's a normal week if I don't see one person on Facebook say the Jesuits need to be suppressed again. And it's just like, that's your first go-to as a Christian,
right.
is, there's too many liberals in this order, so shut it down. It's like, what about Jesuits like me?
Yeah.
Who discerned long and hard about God's will, and it was crystal clear that God wanted me to be a Jesuit. And you're saying we should just get rid of the order? It's like, what am I going to do? If I can't, it's so, I think people just overreact and they throw charity out the window for their own, I guess, comfort.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I don't know. When I think of the Jesuits, I think of giants. I think of a bishop told me once that the Jesuit order has produced more saints in its first, 400 whatever years, proportionate to the other orders, because other orders have been around longer.
Oh, sure, yeah,
So, Saint Robert Bellarmine and Saint Francis Xavier and
yeah,
Saint Ignatius of I mean, there's just so many giants that the church has for.
yeah. And I think part of it is during the Reformation, we mastered the art of martyrdom, and so
Yes.
we produced a lot of saints through that means.
Yeah, especially over here, like Saint Isaac Jogues and all those cats.
Yeah,
I
we have
should
the
call
North
them
American
cats.
martyrs, a lot of martyrs in Japan and Korea.
Yes. Is that Saint
Uh,
Francis Xavier's time?
it was not too long after his time,
Oh, okay.
um, but also a lot of martyrs in Reformation England and places in Europe. Um, yeah, it was rough, but again, I think it just shows like the love that the society has for the church.
Yeah,
That they're
and
willing to go anywhere and do anything.
your order, right? You guys have a pious devotion to the Sacred Heart, correct? Sacred Heart of Jesus.
Well, traditionally, yeah.
Yeah.
Does every Jesuit? I don't know.
Okay.
I certainly try to because Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque, to whom Jesus appeared and revealed devotion to the Sacred Heart, being a cloistered nun, had no way to share that with the world like Jesus was asking. But her spiritual director, Saint Claude La Colombière, was a Jesuit and was not confined to the cloister.
Yeah.
And so Jesus told her to tell him everything. And it was through him that devotion to the Sacred Heart not only came to the wider world,
I think
but the Society of Jesus took it on as part of their personal mission. For example, also we started the Apostleship of Prayer, which is now the Pope's Worldwide Prayer Network, um,
nice.
as an effort to spread devotion to the Sacred Heart among people. So if you see the Sacred Heart somewhere, you know about the Sacred Heart. Ultimately, the Society of Jesus.
Yeah. So 10 years ago I went to Rome all by myself. I've never been somewhere internationally alone. And I went to the four major basilicas, churches in Rome and everything else. The one place that I had the most, I would say, whatever you want to call it, mystical experience or closest to God was at the Church of the Jesuit.
Ah,
Have you been there?
I haven't been to Rome.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
After my 6 months here in Sri Lanka, I am going to Italy for a week, but I'm going to Lucca, where Saint Gemma Galgani was from and is buried. I have a deep devotion to her. I told her if ever I got to go to Italy, I would go to Lucca first because I
Nice.
owe her big time. So I'm hoping I'll get to Rome someday. I'll get close this spring, but
Nice.
not quite there. But I have, of course, seen pictures of the Jesu, and it is a stunning place.
Yeah, the Jesuit. I'm sorry. I think I said Jesu. Jesu for Jesuit. Yeah. Okay.
I thought you said Jesu. Well,
I'm sorry.
Jesu it starts with the G, and it's just Italian for the Church of Jesus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You might not remember, but I'll let you go here pretty soon. But I asked you. I mean, this is a long time ago, so don't worry if you forgot. I wouldn't remember me either. But I remember asking you just randomly. I'm like, hey, Father, besides Our Lady and Saint Joseph, who's your favorite saint? And without a beat, you said Saint Gemma Galgani.
Yeah.
Without a beat. And when you said that, I went and bought her autobiography and read it.
Is it a red book with her picture on the front by Father Germanus?
The
Life of Saint Gemma Galgani?
No. Well, hold on. Oh, it's this one.
Okay, so that is the very first thing I ever read about her. That very pamphlet. Because when I was a novice, doing the exercises and I was all mad at God, about like, I want to be a father and a husband, and you want me to be a priest? Like, what gives, man? And I kind of had to put that all aside. Shortly after that, we had what's called a repose day, which is just kind of a day where you're still supposed to maintain silence and prayer, but your prayer schedule is loosened up a bit, and we were allowed to actually leave the house if we wanted. So a group of us decided to go to a Catholic bookstore, and from across the bookstore, I felt like someone was looking at me. And I turned around, and all the way across the store, on the cover of a book, I could see this face. And so I go up to it, and it's a book, the second of a 2-volume work called Modern Saints. And on the cover was the most beautiful face I'd ever seen in my life. And so I opened the book to see whose face is this. And it was St. Gemma Galgani. Never heard of her. Being a novice, I had very little money. And so I couldn't afford that book. I couldn't afford her biography. But there were these 2 little pamphlets, like the very one that you just showed me. And then also there was her autobiography, or the story of St. Gemma Galgani. It was like red instead of blue. So I bought both of those because they were each only like $6. And I read them that afternoon. I fell head over heels for her. I'd never read anything like it, and I'd never heard of a saint who loved Jesus like she did.
Yeah.
And she made me realize 2 things. One, if I'm going to be a Jesuit, I need to learn how to love Jesus like she loves him, or this isn't going to work. 2, I realized that throughout my life, the times when I was most myself and most fully alive is when I was in love. But I only knew how to be in love with like a woman who I was pursuing and trying to give myself out to. But if I'm going to be a priest, I need to learn how to do that with Jesus. I had no idea how to do that. I just knew how to fall in love with a woman and pursue her. It's like, okay, that's not going to work. But I need that open, passionate, giving heart if I'm going to be able to do this Jesuit thing.
Yeah.
And so being, again, naive and hopelessly romantic, in my prayer that night, in so many words, I asked Gemma out. I told her, like, look, I am so new to this prayer thing, to this vocation thing, but I know my heart, and I know that when I'm in love and I'm pursuing someone, I'm giving myself away, that's when my heart's most open. Like, it was when I was in love with Laura that, like, God was able to get in there and start doing this Jesuit thing. It wasn't before that, and it was after that my heart had been opened in love and generosity. And I was like, I need my heart to stay open like that, but it needs to be for Jesus. I don't know how to do that. But if you'll let me fall in love with you and run after you, I know that all the love and the affection I pour out on you, you're going to orient that toward Jesus. You're going to teach my heart how to fall in love with him. But until then, I need you to kind of be like the object.
Right. So would you agree that, because this is how I always look at it with my favorite saint, would you agree that Saint Gemma Galgani chose you instead of you choosing her?
Totally.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was in that bookstore and I felt like someone was looking at me.
Yep. Wow.
And I was just smitten instantly. So I would write her poems. I would talk to her in prayer. Yeah. And eventually I was able to buy her biography, which was written by Father Germanus, who is venerable. He's on his way to sainthood. And he was also her spiritual director and confessor. And it's a beautiful book. And it really helped me more fully understand like how to love Jesus, but also like, excuse me, what is chastity really? And what is celibacy really? What's the difference? And what is it to love Jesus? But yeah, so she has been an important friend throughout my whole religious life. And she's come to me, so to speak, at really crucial moments. So I am just beyond grateful for her. I have a little Gemma shrine in my room.
Nice, nice.
Um, and I can't wait to visit her and just like weep at her tomb and to thank her.
Yes. Amen.
Uh,
Amen. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that with
yeah.
us. All right. I'll let you go. I do have one last question. It's a fun one. It's an either
Okay.
or, but you got to pick one.
Okay.
Well, you don't, but it'd be fun if you did. All right.
Yeah.
It's an either or. St. Ignatius of Loyola or St. Francis Xavier? Who are you going with?
So, like, if I was gonna go on a journey with one of them,
Sure, sure, yeah.
I would say Ignatius
Okay.
for this reason. So I shared my story of like how it's in high school, like I made my own odes of chivalry and
Yep.
had all these romantic notions. The reason I got so enthusiastically on board with this whole Jesuit thing was because when I finally like learned about Ignatius and read about his story, I was like, that man gets me and
Mm,
I get him. I felt like we were brothers because he had the same like foolish romantic flights of fancy like I had. He fancied himself a knight and ready to do like great deeds, but then just life just like swatted him down. And
yep.
then, you know, with some humility, he figured out, no, this is how God wants me to serve him. And even though Francis Xavier went on to do far more amazing things as a saint, he wouldn't have been equipped to do any of those things had Ignatius not shaped him with the wisdom of his own experience. And so I feel like if I was going to go on a journey with either of them, I think Ignatius and I would have a lot of really wonderful conversations, and we would understand each other on a level that I think Francis and I wouldn't necessarily have.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, Father, this was very fun, very edifying, very blessed to have you come on and share. I hope I guarantee you 1,000+ people will watch this, and I just hope because I have a lot of friends that I know of that are discerning the priesthood or religious life. And so I hope your experience, your story, and your witness helps them and guides them and gives them some things to chew on and to pray about in their journey. Because discernment can be really tough, especially in your vocation. Just
Yeah.
like you just exuded here. And I know like the discernment of spirits in the Ignatian spirituality is really helpful as well. So I'm really thankful that you came on tonight.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And I'd say again, if you're discerning, remember, what does God want? He wants you. He wants you. So how am I going to give myself to the God who has given himself to me already? How am I going to return the love that he's shown me? That's what it's all about. It's not about, well, what does God want me to do? Why won't he just tell me? Like, you're not going to make God unhappy if you make the wrong decision. The only wrong decision is to not give yourself to God somehow.
Amen.
It's like he just wants you. And if that's the
Amen.
case, then there's nothing to be afraid of.
All right. Well, Father, I'll say a few prayers for you tonight.
Please do. And yeah, I invite you and everybody to pray for me. Thursday, I fly to Sri Lanka for the final stage of my Jesuit formation of 6 months of preparing and discerning for final vows.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will for sure. I have a lot of people that can pray for you. Real quick, Laura, did you ever find out what happened to her, what she's doing?
Yeah. So the last contact I had with her was right before I took my first vows. I sent her a letter, first of all, apologizing for all the heartbreak that I'd caused and just how foolish I'd been. Shared a lot of things that I'd learned about myself and about my vocation, and then shared that I was going to take vows. And she was more than welcome to come because I realized I would not be there if it wasn't for her sacrifice.
Yeah.
And that my whole vocation is like rests upon the sacrifice she made first of turning her desire for me completely over to the Lord
Yeah.
and sacrificing her will. And so I remember that all the time. It's like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her faith first. So she sent me a short letter back thanking me profusely for that, but regretting that she wasn't able to come to vows because she was moving to Florida to start her master's degree
Okay.
the same day I was taking vows. So that's the last I heard of her. I know that since then she's gotten her doctorate. She's a speech pathologist and audiologist. She's married, has some kids. So she seems to have gone on to a very happy and blessed life. And I'm very grateful for that. But I haven't had any, I haven't run into her or heard from her since that little note before vows.
All right. Cool. Again, thank you so much, Father.
Mhm.
Very grateful for your time, and we will be praying for you for your safe travels and your time in Sri Lanka. And thank you for giving yourself to God in the way that you have and sharing your story with us. Appreciate it very much.
Very welcome.
All right. Have a good night, Father.
You as well.
All right. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.